Alright, I just got finished watching an Al Jazeera uh, post about tensions between India and China. Uh, they had three people on. One was Adam Lamb or Lee or Lai or something like that from out of, I think, Germany. Uh, and then it was two Indian guys, and they're both from one of those think tanks. So between that and the way that the host was queuing up things and everything else, just goes to show it was a propaganda piece. Now, I also looked through the comments of it, and the comments were basically just filled with hey, China is a warmonger. China is trying to take over the world. China is Nazis, and China is this, and China is that. And there seem to be only a few. I think I read one or two that were clearly thinking more along the lines of, let's look at it objectively. Let's look at the facts. And the facts being is that India is pivoting towards the U.S. and West, building up an alliance. And the U.S. Has pivoted to U.S. and West has pivoted to Asia. The primary aggressors are the U.K. or the Brits actually, and the U.S. The U.S. has I think something like 60% of the naval assets over, and basically in on China's doorstep. They keep using the freedom of navigation to do incursions into Chinese waters. They're saying, that there's that whole thing with those islands that China built up, but that's a purely defensive tactic, and if you don't have to be a military genius to understand why you would do that when you know that the U.S. and the West are making moves because they feel that China is on the rise on all the spectrums, and the West has objectively been an opportunistic aggressive opportunist. It's not. This isn't conspiracy. This is historical truth and fact. There's then there's a story about the Uyghurs. Now, I've looked into a lot of this, and when I first heard about it, about the Uyghurs, I was displeased to hear about that. But I was getting the framework of Western propaganda. Al Jazeera was doing it. Democracy Now! Was doing it. And at the time, I respected Democracy Now! And Al Jazeera. I thought that they were being more objective. But after listening to people, actual people that, especially Western people, who are objectively reporting and have actually gone to China and in India and other places, and have done the research and looked at it objectively, it punched holes into everything. And so, objectively, especially like Nathan Rich, who lives in China, who covered the Uyghurs, and explained why the Chinese were doing what the Western media, which Al Jazeera is, particularly in the English version of Al Jazeera, on particular subjects. So they can't be objective because the directive is don't be objective when it comes to certain interests. Now, Al Jazeera is often objective, at least in Al Jazeera English, on more objective, not completely objective, but more objective on a lot of stories that they put. But when it comes to certain areas in politics, especially when it aligns with the country. I forget what country. I think it's Jordan, who funds Al Jazeera, much like RT is funded by Russia. Now, Russia, RT is objective. RT English is objective on many things, but when it comes to political and other areas, especially when it comes to the issues with tensions with the West, they can be less objective. So now, while I can understand, I'm not sure that. Actually, no, I'm sure that it's not a good. It's completely immoral and bankrupt and silly and stupid to be that way. I think if you're going to be a news journalist, and put out the truth, put out the fucking truth. Don't misdirect, don't spin, don't propagandize. Period. But then, at the same time, if you're being funded by a government, it's you don't really have much option when it comes to directives. So that's why I say it's understandable. Not to say I like it, because I don't. As I said, if you're gonna call yourself journalist, if you're gonna say you're putting out the news, be flat out, objective and honest. As I said, it's immoral, it's stupid. All it does is cause more death, destruction, and breakdown, and of cooperation and solidarity. Especially what we're facing with the pandemic, climate crisis, the breakdown of our ecosystem and our biosphere, which we all universally need. Our natural, the Earth, our mother, is being decimated by us. And the West, in particular, contributes to the overwhelming destruction. And that includes Russia. And so there are plenty of things that I don't like about China. But compared to the West and many other places, China is putting an insane amount of effort in trying to build up an infrastructure for renewable energy, for building up recycling, uh, and everything else. Now, are they perfect? No, there's a lot of flaws, but at least they're doing efforts. I mean, China planted a billion fucking trees. India, on the other hand, is actually cutting down a lot. Now there are stories of there are not the Indian government, because the Indian government is the one. Indian government and Indian businesses and the international businesses in India are doing the destruction, while the people in India are actually trying to do something to counter that. So they're making efforts to plant trees and so on and so forth. But it's like, uh, so uh, it's there's this and there's so much more. I mean, if you if you pay attention to Max Blumenthal and the Gray Zone and Pushback and or Abby Martin or Chris Hedges, uh, Nathan Rich, and Nathan is, I think, often being too neutral and fair. Adam, he was being too neutral and fair, meaning that he was trying to uh, trying to he's trying to be non-confrontational and conciliatory and saying, and not wanting to ramp up a possible hot war and so on and so forth. But at least in that they were being more they are being more neutral and they're trying to build up uh, uh, cooler heads. But there's clear indications if you're paying attention, and if you're being objective, and if you're looking at things at a critical level, to understand that China, who has literally Western U.S. military bases completely around, and then there's the South China Sea. You have U.S., British, and French, and all those. They're all over there, and you got Japan, who's working. I mean, Japan, who in World War II, not that long ago, that we can still remember in our collective memories, who committed massive war crimes, killed millions. In Korea and in China and Vietnam and Malaysia and the Philippines, and you just go on and on and on. So it's ridiculous to think that the alignment. I mean, Japan really is still an occupied uh, occupied zone of the U.S. South Korea is an occupied zone, and so I just it's there's just too much pointing to the West trying to ramp up U.S. and West. Now India is who's pivoting to the West, is carrying water for their own geopolitical and economic and other reasons to ramp up tensions, to stem China. So there's a lot of demagoguery and everything else and vilification. That's and Al Jazeera, that particular piece I just talked about Al Jazeera, that clearly shows there were dozens upon dozens of comments. I scrolled down, and there was, as I said, I think like one or two, except not including my own comments. And the overwhelming was this racist, bigoted. Uh, it's it's it was just sick, and they're like, rah rah, let's go start a war, let's go start killing each other. And the two Indian quote unquote guests, one is doing that liberal politician, Western liberal politician crap. The other one was clearly a Indian nationalist. It's and then you had the so-called host who's queuing it up and gearing it so that it's sick. It's absolutely sick. As I said, go check out Max Boomtoe and the Gray Zone, and Pushback and Moderate Rebels and all this, and the information that they're putting out is extremely alarming. It's pointing to tantamount to playing Russian roulette that will bring about it could set off World War III, and if not that, at least a war that could because there's a lot of countries except for Russia, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, and a few and Cuba. It's like India used to belong to the BRICS nations who were trying to neuter the U.S. Petrodollar and U.S. financial stranglehold across the world. And I'm still confused as to why India has left the BRICS and basically neutered the efforts to bring the U.S. Monetary and financial stranglehold that I don't. It was a smart thing to do, but India has basically backed out, and it's if I think this issue with this tensions in the Himalayas about the controversy with the borders, and I've seen this at least on 3 different occasions, being reported through Al Jazeera and France 24 and DW and some other international sources. I'm this really worries me. We can't afford to have a war. Not with everything that's taking place. Iran, there's clearly ramping up tensions. Iran is a strong, is a fairly strong ally, because not in military or economic or political, but strong as in, there's a mutual enemy of the West who's strangling. Same with Venezuela. There's a mutual enemy of the West. And when I talk about the West, I'm talking about the governments of the West and the corporations and the wealthy, the ultra wealthy of the West. Cuba, the same way. Russia, they would, if it weren't for the fact that there's a Russia's economy was coming out of basically the dark stone ages of economic oblivion, and Russia and the rest of the West could see it, and if the West through NATO wasn't expanding to Russia's western border, and there wasn't tensions with Japan, which is Western driven interests. Russia would probably be more ideologically aligned with the West. But again, it's the West that's doing all the aggression, because the West wants to control everything. They want to be able to do, like, hey, it doesn't matter if it's China, or it doesn't matter if it's in the Central Asia or East or Middle East or Africa. We want the ability to do whatever the fuck we please, and you just have to take it. That's been the Western ideology. It's a psychotic, murderous, genocidal ideology, and it's really up to Western people, and not people like me. I'm from the West, but it's up to Western white people to understand this, admit it, and say, okay, objectively, that's what we're doing is horrible, and it can't go on, and there has to be pushback from Western white people, because having temporary form of security while everything else is burning down around you, and getting this sensation that you're somehow superior, somehow better off, somehow how's that gonna work when you destroy the ecosystem that supplies the very things that we need for food, water? When the air quality gets bad, so bad that we get we're already seeing it. The spike in cardiovascular and pulmonary. I'm not pulmonary. Lung, with lung diseases and heart diseases, uh, with diabetes and hypertension. And, when we're seeing increases in Alzheimer's and dementia and this and that it, and cancers, it's just, when we the West the West is filled with these uh, psychotics. They might as well be uh, Marilyn Manson. They might as well be uh, Hitler, because because while they may be not be overtly saying it, the fact is the underlying premise is that it's my immediate self gratification. They're like fucking Hitler. You can think of Hitler as being a child who's addicted to the drug of feeling important. It's narcissism and all that other stuff. It's feeling important and feeling that adrenaline and other things, considering it was high. That's what it is, and nothing about thinking about the consequences, the overarching consequences of their actions and their thinking comes into play, even though it is playing a part in their own self-preservation. It's insane, and unfortunately, this sort of thing has bled into the Western white population, and it's been going on for centuries. And the lack of critical thinking and understanding is staggering, and in each generation this is continued, or if there is a realization there's no will or drive to seriously push back and say, no, we got to stop this, because ultimately this is going to kill us all. It doesn't matter where we live. It doesn't matter because it's the weather and the ecosystem, the biosphere. It's all interconnected. We are part of the biosphere. It's all interconnected. It all comes back, and we can't continue to do what we do and continue to say we love our children. We we want solidarity. We want when the destruction continues and marches forward relentlessly, and with each passing year and each passing generation, we might as well be be taking a slow acting cyanide that acts slowly and will eventually go to the point where suddenly it will come on fast and hard, and by that point there's nothing we can do about it. It's not just a climate crisis. It's an ecological crisis. It's a biological crisis. It's a mental. It's an emotional. It's a spiritual crisis. It's one that we accept, and it's through that acceptance that we are giving, we are endorsing such thing as our own uh, our own inevitable extinction, and the dramatic and horrible consequences that those generations that we want to see, that we want to nurture, we want to support, are going to face consequences that will go beyond nightmarish. We're not building a society that's going to give security and comfort to our next generations. We are, in fact, being part of the machine that is working to destroy it. And we can't say, "Oh, it hurts my brain," or "There's nothing." It comes down to simply understanding that our inactions, our actions, and everything else in between endorses our genocidal march to our own self-destruction, and saying, okay, we've got to stand together, we've got to put a stop to it, and we must look to solutions and work together. That's not that hard. But that means we need to put aside our individualistic, the idea of individualism, and the selfishness that's baked in and bred into it. We have to put aside these fears that aren't actually have no real substance. When doing nothing or actively working to do that for whatever insane reasoning behind it, is only marching us forward to our own oblivion.